So Liz, first of all, the last time we talked to you, you were in the process of getting the uterus transplant. So explain how that went, what that process was like for you.
So we last talked in December 2021, and that was 4 months before my uterus transplant. Basically, was on a short mini vacation and got the call for transplant. Came back from Gatlinburg a little bit early, had surgery, and now I've had a uterus for 15 months. So, wow. Yeah.
What was that like the moment you got that phone call?
It was kind of funny because it had been storming that day, and it knocked out the Wi-Fi, and the cell service was not good at the top of the mountain. So basically, we were having a lot of trouble getting connected. My heart's sitting there racing because it was 11:10 at night, and my transplant nurse popped up on my phone, and I knew what that meant. So getting that phone call, especially like after almost 8 months of waiting for just being listed for transplant, and then getting the call while I was on vacation, just trying to take a breather away from it, because when you're waiting for a transplant and just waiting for that call, every single phone call, text message, everything, just like it makes your heart race. So it was 8 months of that every single day, and then boom, get the call when I'm on vacation, trying to like escape for a second. Mm-hmm. But it was the most exciting thing ever, just to start the process and the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So did you have to like rush? Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
I've seen these cakes. Just leave it. Thank you.
Okay. So how does that work? Did you have to get back here in a certain amount of time?
Yeah, so basically we talked about everything on the phone, just went over different scenarios. I had to accept the uterus offer, and then we came back home, and 2 days later, I was getting rolled into the OR, or being rolled into the OR and getting a uterus transplant. And then I vaguely remember waking up, and the first question I asked was, did it work? Did I have a uterus? And then I took a picture with my little stuffed uterus, plush animal thing, and then with a thumbs up, and was in the hospital for 11 days, and then got to go home.
Wow. How did the surgery go? What kind of issues or pain did you experience? Or for somebody who hasn't been through that, kind of describe
so that. You're basically cut from above your belly button to your pubic bone. So recovery, I had never had such an intense surgery before. So you got to realize like how many abdominal muscles are being cut through and everything. I had 57 staples holding me together for 6 weeks until they finally took those out. So it was really rough as far as just trying to get healed and get back to what normal life was, but I wouldn't change it. It was tough, but I always just kind of remind myself I'm tougher. So
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so once you get the transplant, then you said you went through the IVF process. So kind of walk me through the steps of getting the transplant to finding out that you were expecting.
Okay, so we actually, before I got listed for transplant, we did IVF to create our embryos. Mm-hmm. Then I got listed for transplant, actually moved up here and got listed for transplant. And then I waited, it was 7 months to the day to when I transferred our first embryo, and that one ended in a miscarriage. So then I waited another 3 months to do another transfer, and that was February 9th, and now I'm 28 weeks today. So
that's so exciting. What was the moment like when you found out that this was working, that you're expecting a baby girl?
Yeah, so even with the first one, like just getting a positive pregnancy test. So you have to consider I was born without a uterus. So you go from like being told at 14 that you'll never be able to carry your own baby, and then you get accepted into a uterus transplant program, and then from there you actually get a uterus, and then you have your first period at 30 years old, and then you get a positive pregnancy test. So like even still when I wake up most days, it's like, wow, I still have a uterus. Like I never thought I would have a uterus, and now there's a baby inside the uterus. That's my baby that I was told I would never get to carry. So like, I think my brain honestly has like trouble processing that still on a daily basis, because I was told for so long, like 17 years, it wasn't going to happen. And then it's like all unfolding. And I was at 36 for the whole United States. So yeah, I'm living like the biggest and wildest dream that I could ever have.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're the 36th person
That had a uterus transplant for the whole United States.
and that like had a uterus transplant and was successful, or just had the transplant?
Had the transplant.
Wow, that's a
Yeah.
big number. So explain the emotions maybe you had, like even as a child or a teenager, when you're thinking about, you know, this is something that is never going to happen for me potentially. So what kind of goes through your mind as a kid or as a teenager?
Yeah.
What emotions did you experience about that?
So being diagnosed with MRI KH, which is like a 1 in 5,000 girl diagnosis, like I just turned 14, was basically, I had an exam and an ultrasound, and then I remember sitting in the doctor's office and them saying that I didn't have a uterus, I would never be able to carry a pregnancy. I knew I wanted kids at that point, so that was rough. And then at that point, uterus transplant wasn't even a thing. I got married at 21, and I remember that was 2013, so 2014 is when Sweden started doing their uterus transplants. And then thinking it was never going to come to the United States, it popped up at Cleveland Clinic, I believe in 2016. So at that point, it was like a big dream that I tucked like down in my heart and never thought it would happen. And then whenever UAB launched the program in 2020 in Alabama, I was like, all right, let's do this, you know? But you know, it went from like being hopeless to actually having hope.
Yep. And so now, okay, so you're 28 weeks. Talk about what your life is like right now, the appointments that you have to do and all the things that come along with not just a pregnancy, but with having this transplant.
So I have your normal like maternal fetal medicine appointments with a team of doctors. So the whole uterus transplant team is just comprised of so many different doctors of different specialties. You have nurses, you have pharmacy. So I'm not just a pregnant person, I'm also a transplant patient. So have weekly labs, if not once, twice a week. I have magnesium infusions because my levels have been low. I have monthly cervix biopsies to test for rejection, and then ultrasounds to go along with maternal fetal medicine. So it's a lot of appointments, a lot of back and forth travel to UAB, but it's worth it.
Yep. What is going through your mind as you're preparing to welcome this baby girl?
So there's a lot of excitement, a lot of just like anxious and nervousness. I know it's going to be a C-section, but then you have to factor in, I'm more likely to get preeclampsia with transplant. And then we really don't know when it's going to happen. So the goal would be 37 weeks. It could be anytime. I could basically go to a doctor's appointment and them say, all right, today's your day, and have to be ready. So that's like the stressful part of it, but I trust my team and I'm ready for whatever comes our way.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you looking forward to about being, I know you're already a mother because you're already raising 2 boys, but to be a mom to a child that grew inside of you,
Yeah.
How do you prepare yourself for that? What are you thinking about or looking forward to most?
Yeah, so I think it's going to be wild. Like even when she's here, I think it's going to take a while for it to process of like, okay, this is my baby. Like I said, whenever you go from being told and you're like dwelling on 17 years of you're not going to have your own baby, and then you're carrying your own baby and you still can't even get past that point. Like just being able to see her and like hold her and actually like do life with her, you know, I think it's going to be wild. It's going to be the wildest thing. And I'm going to have to like retrain my brain of like, all right, this has actually happened.
Yeah.
Because every day like feels like I'm waking up to a dream.
Yeah.
So.
And I know you picked out a name. So
Yeah.
Tell us about picking out a name and all that exciting
Yeah,
stuff.
so we actually picked out a name. We knew we wanted a girl and we did IVF. So we knew that we had both girl and boy embryos. So we actually, last summer, just getting through recovery of transplant and then also like all the obstacles I've had to go through along the way. I had an infection and rejection happen at the same time. What else? It's just been thing after thing, you know? You never know what to expect on a journey like this. So Timmy was like, I really want to come up with a name. And I was like, all right. So we actually created a Pinterest board, and we would just randomly pin names to it. And every so often we would pull it up and just talk about it. And so we picked Zari Grace for her name.
Love it.
Yep.
And let's see, what would you say to maybe other women who have been told the bad news of, you know, you may never have a pregnancy? What would you say to women kind of now on this side of it who might be going through the same thing that you went through?
So I would say, like, if I could go back and tell 14-year-old Liz, like, something, I would say, like, you're going to have that big dream, and to just keep pushing towards that dream. And then, like, if someone was interested in uterus transplant, and I have people message me all the time asking me about it, whether they've had, like, an MRI KH diagnosis or hysterectomy. And I always tell them, I'm like, it's the hardest thing that you'll ever do in your entire life, but at the end, it'll be completely worth it. But I always just try to remind, when I have girls that are 14, 15, 16, maybe even like young 20s message me with MRI KH, I'm always like, dream big. So like, if you want this, it's obtainable, but like, never stop chasing that dream.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me again what MRI KH stands for.
So, I have no idea how to say the actual,
It's
it's
okay.
like, it's doctor names, but basically
Okay,
it's where you're
let's
born
look it up.
without a uterus and cervix.
Okay, yeah. I'll look it up later.
Yeah.
Because I probably won't be able to say it either, so we'll skip right over that.
Like Mayer, Rokitansky, Kuster-Hauser syndrome or something. I would
Okay.
butcher it.
It's been too long.
My surgeon would be like, what's going on?
Don't do that again. Okay, let's talk about we were talking about the transplants too, and just the importance of donations and just how that's changed your life. And I don't know if you want to talk about meeting the family, but just, you know, whatever you want to say about transplants and the importance of it and how it's changed your life.
So one of the like most exciting things on this journey has been not only getting the uterus and now having a pregnancy, but also connecting with my donor's family through Legacy of Hope. So my donor not only gifted me her uterus to have a life-saving, my donor not only gifted me a uterus for me to be able to bring a life in this world, but also she donated her heart, both kidneys and liver, to help save lives too. So it's not something that I take for granted, and like every single day, like so incredibly thankful that her family chose to donate organs.
Absolutely. What was that like, the moment that you got to meet them?
I haven't met them in person yet,
okay.
but we have connected in other ways. And so just being able to like have an ultrasound or get news or have a no rejection biopsy and like send that to her mom, and her mom like is so excited for us. Like it makes my day, honestly. I always wanted, when I got listed for transplant, I knew I wanted to connect with my donor family in some kind of way. So I'm super thankful that I have been able to do that.
That's wonderful. Okay.
Yep.
Good deal. All right, perfect. Anything else you want to add, or
I don't think so.
anything we missed?
I don't think so.
Oh, I know what I was going to ask you. So I noticed on almost all of your posts, you write "the best is yet to come."
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, so the best is yet to come. Basically, I've been sharing my story since April of 2021 when I first got accepted into the uterus transplant program. And like I said, this is the hardest journey that I've ever done in my life, and I've had to give up a lot of everything that we were used to. Had to move to a whole new city, go through some impossible things that I can't even I could tell you all day long all the things I've been through, but it's hard until you actually walk through it. So even through the tough times, obviously it's really easy to celebrate the wins and the successes of everything, but then whenever you go through the tough times, it's like, okay, how do I keep moving forward? Like whenever I had the early miscarriage in November, it's like, how do I pick up the pieces after all the work I've put in and keep going forward? So that's just been my slogan through it all, is the best is yet to come.
That's great. Good message.
Yep.
All right. Good
Yep.
deal.